Public deliberation, basically, applied in public finances, is a whole idea of using tenets of dialogue, tenets of, discussive democracy, to be able to discuss how then should budget allocations be made.
What we focus on a lot is how is it that the public can better understand how budgets are developed, how your money is spent, and everything in between. So our big focus is always on budget transparency. You as a citizen, how do you access your budgets? Do you understand them? Are they helpful for you whenever you're trying to understand what the government is doing? Secondly, we also focus a lot on public participation. The reason why we want the public to access budgets is because we want them to engage better. So for example, what we are doing today is part of our initiative to kind of see how is it that public participation can improve when it comes to how we prepare our budgets in the country. And now, of course, we have county and national. Every year in February, saizi tuko February, every year in February, the national government, at the national level, that you still have your ministries and you still have your Ministry of Finance, at the national level, we have to decide how much money we are going to give all the sectors that exist in government. At the national level, we have 10 sectors. Okay? Now, the 10 sectors include sectors like health, education, public administration, and others. Under each of the sectors, you have ministries. So for example, under the sector education, you have a number of ministries there. You have a state department for basic education, you have a state department for university education, and the rest. So even in the budget, that is how the budget is arranged, is that you have 10 sectors. We have to decide how much money we give to each of those 10 sectors. Then when we've given each of those sectors their money, then now those sectors have to decide how much money they are going to give to each of their ministries.
At the same time, we realized that in Murang'a there were very heated arguments around the choices that they were making. But then a lot of that was informed by people's own understanding about how government sectors work and what the objective of those sectors should be. And in a way, we found people borrowing a lot from their own experiences. So if it is in education or infrastructure, there was a general conceptualization with the group about how those sectors should work in determining the development agenda of the country. And so we noticed there was a bit more of borrowing from experiences than the information that we had presented before them.
We were trying to see, after 4 years, we produced 1 million from 4 rivers. 70,000 got to university. Out of the 70,000, 10% are focus and material. The remaining 930,000 are Kulima. They are not adding as much as infrastructure would. Garissa Road was built by NYS sometimes back. NYS guys are trained for 6 months. And they built that road, and it's one of the best roads in the country. So we don't need to put 70% in education so that we produce great minds. We just need to be organized.
Let me tell you something that worries me most. Nikki Beiti, made in China, which is being sold here in Kenya. It's a car. Oh, they are all made from China. Why?
So the point, Daniel, before you see,
So if we were educated enough, and when we mean about education, we should expand that. So we will not only going to class and coming out of the class. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, there's something that we are missing that makes us import those from China. If we would have been learned people with understanding, people who knows how things are being made, we would have stopped buying from China and start making them in Kenya.
Look at the NYS, imebadilika sasa. NYS hawasomeshi PhDs na degrees, wanasomea technical courses. Hizo zitasaidia nchi. Ukisema to invest education 70%, tulipatia 70%. those great minds wakaenda wapi? Nje ya country. You are going to that.
They are not educated, but the wealthy people like Bill Gates. I think he was among the people. But there is this man who was a food blogger. I don't remember his name. But he was not educated as much as we can say. But yeah, Steve Jobs, that is. But you can see the greater mind that he had, despite being not educated, he was somebody we learned from. For me, I would say for maybe Chinese, the system with the Chinese and Kenya is very different. Because since you are a child, you are given the technical skills. Maybe for the toys that we see the Chinese are making, they are making watches, those toys that can move with engines. They are not educated, they are given skills. All we need is skills and change our system of education.
Do you think those skills?
15 on agree. Hata inaanzia both kinds of investments are very important. That we agree. But here's the point. Tuko Kenya. And here is the bone of contention. If Kenya had better roads and railways and more reliable energy, and businesses could invest more and be more profitable. And this in turn would lead to greater employment and growing economy. Mark the word greater. Greater employment and a growing economy. Hapo tuko sawa? Sawa. Then on the other hand, as much as we are saying both are important, here comes this, the bone of contention. My component two. For every hour of labor that the Kenyan invents, they produce less value than Sweden, and therefore they generate less income. Mark the word less. What are we looking for here? The greatest. Umesikia kuna bahali kuna greatest hapo? Hakuna. Sindio? I'm actually trying to bring the both parts together. Sindio? So that we see which is which. For every hour labor that Kenya invests, they produce less than Sweden. And therefore, they generate less. Tunaongea kuhusu employers, sindio? Wengine wanaongea kuhusu barabara ya kitu yenye wenyewe walianza kujenga kutoka ile. China shamaliza hapa. Sindio? All factors are considered.
So Turkana is one of the marginalized counties up north, and I think for Turkana again, this was a mixed group where you had professionals, you had business people, you had people who basically don't work. And again, this is one group that didn't have very many people who've engaged with the budget before. But I think one thing that we noticed with Turkana, number one, is that they seemed to have a very clear idea after going through the information that we presented them, on the information that they would need to better understand the process and to better make the decisions that we were asking them to make that day.
Education 40% and infrastructure 60%. Why? Because most of the infrastructure, that is most of the projects that were under infrastructure came to an end, but you see we need to develop the infrastructure in place for extractives, for early oil production. So that alone enables us to maintain some allocations, and in education it was 39, we increased by 1% to take at least to bridge, that is the free secondary education.
This gives infrastructure a better position for more allocation. But I know it's not going to continue like that, because some things can be done once and we forget it. Like if we tarmac Italy Road, we will not tarmac it next year. We will move into something else. Then if we go to education, we will say we want maybe 3 universities in Turkana County, one in this sub-county, and then this one here. Once done, we forget about those ones. So this tells us we still need to improve our infrastructure, then we maybe begin saying now we can have education coming fast.
Maybe example ya kwanza ni standard gauge railway. Expertise walitoka hapo. Tuko nao wala wanatengeneza standard gauge hiyo kweli. Tulichukua kutoka ile time. So lazima to develop our expertise. Ndiposa tuna support allocation mingi pale yetu. So nchi inaendelea kama wako human resources. Wako na human resources ya kutosha. Kama za kujenga reli, kama za kujenga bridges, kama za kufanya research. Barabara once ikitekelezwa inatosha. Stima, kuna investors watafanya hiyo, lakini kwa education hakuna investor anakuja kuweka pesa yake hapo. Government ndio inafanya hiyo pesa yake. Ielimishe wananchi, na ndiposa unasikia kaunti inaendelea, kwa sababu wananchi wako wamesoma. Sectors zote wamekuwa well trained, be it engineers, mechanical, what everything, in all sectors.
We can decide not to build roads, lami tutaweka maybe baadaye, but tutatumia barabara ya ile haijafagilia haijawekwa lami. But in education, mwanafunzi lazima awe na mwalimu. Huwezi postpone hiyo because age is coming and also time is going. Unaona? So maneno education haiwezi ngoja, but maneno infrastructure you can postpone, inaweza ngoja.
The literacy is at over 80%. That, and then the infrastructure of education, they are still low, because we are talking about a community that has been marginalized for over 50 years. The other thing that is very contentious, the reason why answering that question is very difficult, we just discovered oil. Economy here is very poor. Employment rate is also very low. So while exploring energy might cause employment to the community around. So in my view, because they are all important, employment is as important as education, I will give it a 50-50.
Wengi ambao wamesoma zaidi na hawana wote kazi. So mimi kwa hiyo 100 nitapatia energy and infrastructure 60. Alafu education nitapatia 40. Kwa sababu tutengeleze kazi kwa wale watu ambao wamemaliza shule kwanza. Hao ambao watapata kazi wakuje, wengine watakuja watasaidia jamii yao na watasomesha wale wengine.
Nakumbuka wakati mafuta ilianza kuchimbwa hapa Lokicher, walitafuta wasomi wa Turkana na hakuna hata moja ilipatikana, na ilipatikana nje ya Turkana. Je, sasa vile mtu anasema tuweke petroleum iwe number 1, je, wewe unatupeleka mbele ama unaturudisha nyuma?
Education 60, infrastructure 40. Because you cannot achieve quality education without adequate infrastructure. So, as much as we are talking of marginalization, we need also to develop this component of infrastructure. Yeah. We need roads so that industries can be opened here, mambo ya petroleum here. That is why we need to balance these things. Hii mambo ya education ni priority, but we don't need also to leave other sectors behind.
Not all will be employed in the white-collar jobs, indicating that a lot of resources should go to education such that as many people as possible can be educated, and those ones who cannot be employed in the white-collar jobs can be employed, can self-employ themselves. In the infrastructure, as we have gone through the document, we have found that some sectors can provide money for itself, like the petroleum. It will sell its petrol and it will get its money from elsewhere. So I tend to think education should be given more. In this case, 70. and then the other one will get 30.
In Homa Bay, we saw a lot of, because one of the expectations with deliberations is that people will, give proposals, there will be counter proposals, and people will push each other to justify why they are giving certain proposals. And we saw that in Homa Bay, basically all rounded. Homa Bay had very good discussions. I think also the fact that I think the group we had in Homa Bay also had professionals, people from the CSO world. Is definitely Homa Bay had more heated discussions, but at the same time we saw a lot of the counter checking.
We're talking of education, right? We have trained engineers, we have teachers, and we have doctors. Yet we don't have infrastructure. Now that's my one. Because we train them, yet we are not utilizing the resource. So to me, I would say that infrastructure is the core to any economic development.
If I was to give 70, then I will be taking 70 to inner and infrastructure. That is where my argument is. Because we're looking at how supportive. We need, yes, we do need, education needs an allocation. According to me, the allocation that they need is will be consumed, and it's on salaries and it's on research and it's on administration and operations. But then again, when we're looking at roads, how much of it do we have? We need to access either the health facilities, we need to access educational centers, we also need to have more buildings, we also need to build more ICT hubs, we also need to have more power supplied into these areas.
If you look at education and the energy sectors, the energy sector absorbs a lot of young people because it has a lot of informal sectors. So it is very important. Look, for instance, we have the programs under petroleum, transport, infrastructure, housing, human settlement, public works. You will find a lot of informal programs. The Juakari sectors are here. So a lot of young people who are released from the learning institutions are directly absorbed in this other department.
Yeah, if you look at the units, the spending units under energy and infrastructure, they are numerous, and if you look at them, none of them you can rubbish. They are all critical in the economy. Yeah. While when we go to the education, we find that the biggest chunk goes to remuneration of teachers. Yeah. Yeah. So when we allocate education more, it means that we'll have, when the Teacher Service Commission will find itself with the surplus, then it will give increments to teachers. Which actually does not have a direct impact on the development of the society.
I'm not happy with the allocation that the government is directing towards road safety. 2016-2017, they are allocating 1 billion. This year, they are still allocating another 1 billion. Yet, we've had a series of accidents within our roads. So I was expecting that this year, the allocation will be increased. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This sector is not doing well in their planning. There's poor planning here. Because you look at the allocation given to planning, in all the departments is higher, it's very high. But in terms of if you look and compare the ceilings of the previous budget to the next, you realize there's some sectors that are supposed to be active are failing, and they have an increase. So it's not doing well.
If you look at alternative energy technologies, we still have 1-1. So this one simply shows that despite the fact that the allocation has been reduced, we still have the same alternative. So they should have given more to the alternative energy.
For education, the basics, the reduction is being done, and the difference is very big. Then it means you're not putting more into the foundation of our young people. Then you come to tertiary, then you realize the university is being given more priority. Don't forget, the universities they have limits. not all join universities. The rest who fall back will not join university. They need to go to vocational trainings, which has the least 2% allocation. Then it means we are living a young, and what we preach, the youth, the younger people are the majority of this nation, and we need human power.
So we decided we at least raise on social protection to 30%, and then have governance, justice, law and order at 70%. And these are the reasons. Reason number one, when we increase that on social protection, we are likely to decrease the crime rates. And once we decrease the crime rates, the proportion we had taken from governance will be taken because crime itakuwa kidogo, kwa hivyo polisi will not need those equipments and whatever. That is, and we will achieve that by giving women loans, vijana, kuwajengea viwanja. That's point number one. Reason number two, we need to focus on the less fortunate in our society, the street children, the people with disabilities. We need to bring them level with the common person so that they are not discriminated against wakue at the same level. That's the reason number two. Reason number three, there's this thing called dependency levels in our society, whereby if I am working, I'm feeding my grandfather, my grandmother, my 8 children, my disabled neighbor. So when we increase the social protection allocations, we will see the government will take care of those the elderly, watachukua shosho, wachukue the people with the disabilities, yule kijana street boy naendaga nikipatia mkate asubuhi, he will be taken care of. So mimi ile natafuta itakuwa yangu, and maybe I'll be able to invest somewhere and grow the economy. Maybe if before allocating the money, we were told that we have a very big earthquake in the coastal region that needs very serious evacuation, and it needs 40 billion, and that falls under social protection, culture and education. Maybe we could have, if we got that information before doing our budget. Or maybe we heard that there's an uprising somewhere in huko msituni, there's an uprising, and maybe we need more police with more equipment. That would have made us alter our allocations. Thank you.
So, as each group is giving its 3 reasons, I want you to rate how adequate you think those reasons are and how satisfied you are with them.
Governance, justice, law and order, 75. Security being a major player in a stabilized country. Funds are also supposed to be made available for facilitation of international relations.
The group resolved that the 2018-2019 allocation for social protection will be 70%, while governance will be 30%.
For governance, justice, law and order, we give it 70%. The GLO sector consists of 14 MDS, 20 semi-autonomous government agencies, and 15 tribunals that require a huge chunk of money for operation. So we gave it that 70%. While the other sector, that is social protection, culture and recreation, has got only 6 departments, 6 MDAs and 20 SAGS. So we gave it 30%. For governance, justice and law, there were key priority issues that require funding. For instance, we saw security as a major factor, as a major element in governance that requires huge funding. Quite a big number of emerging issues in governance, justice, law and order that require immediate or rather adequate funding. A good example is, for instance, we are just migrating from an electioneering period. So we need key areas, key agencies like the National Human Rights Commission, properly funded. We need more money for the judiciary to complete cases. We don't see much in emerging issues from the other sector, that is social protection, culture and recreation, and the recreation sector.
Of course, time was not too long to be able to observe very critically, but indeed there was some participation. Like I remember in Turkana County, some of the women could not even speak English, could not even speak Swahili. But after they had been explained to about what was going on, they contributed. You know, I remember like it's one of the women who actually gave the first sharing, ratios of how much we should share money between, education and infrastructure.
Hapo kwa mambo ya broadcasting and telecommunication. Broadcasting and telecommunication. Maendeleo yake. Ninashangaa K4K sina nini. Lakini nimeshangaa
exactly hata mimi pia nilikuwa nimechoose that ina receive the less percentage. Less percentage is so vital, si ndio?
Kila ndo mobile cinema shows zani. And we already have the national broadcaster. So watumie hiyo mara moja. Nyingine tena yenye nimeiangalia hapo kwa petroleum. Kwa mambo ya exploration na nini, I think because it is something that imeingia Kenya na kitu yenye inaweza kutusaidia especially sisi kama mtu. Ingeongezewa nini hela. It's like wamekea tano ziko yao. Maana tano saizi the community are demanding more from them. Na hata hawajaanza kuimagine government ingewasaidia sana. So at least because it is something that is going to help the whole of the country, ingepatiwa at least allocation ambayo ni nzuri. Alafu tukiangalia mambo ya infrastructure sana, hii mambo ambayo tunaona ni buildings, roads na vitu kama hivyo, na shida kidogo tu kimetengenezwa, it will take maybe like some years tena ndio iweze kutengenezwa. For example, kama hata ile barabara ikishaanza kutengenezwa, so it means labda hii ikiwekwa maybe ikuwe inafanywa tu karabati, but it will take labda 50 years ikuwe completed kabisa. So I think pesa ingechukuliwa ili iweze kuongezwa kwa education, maana education absorption ni nyingi because ya wale wanafunzi kuongezeka, and then pia wakati wanafunzi wanaongezeka, ratio pia ya teacher to student ratio ikiongezeka, so inabidi hiyo sector iweze kuongezewa.
Infrastructure is 75%. Of which we lack our engineers, most in Kenya. So we have to export engineers from outside. And that is putting them in a story complication. So unakuta story ya hii pesa katika imeenda tu na export kuweka watu Kenya. Sasa hii 25% ajienda timeenda bure akiwa watetumia, no wametumia, lakini mtu akiendelea kutumika aje hapa. This way 95% inatumika. Kenya, we have just TSC, wanapatiwa hii, TVET wanapatiwa hii, inaenda kwa university plan, hii inaenda kwa plan, hii inajenga, yani inaonekana tu wenye imetumika. That's why 95% inaonekana imetumika. For me, invest more in infrastructure. Tuzidi kuwapatia pesa za infrastructure.
The women who are in the women group in Homa Bay, a couple of them, not all of them, were definitely very vocal. It's not clear to us whether they are just vocal because of the spaces where they work, or they were vocal because they kind of had an easier time engaging with other women within their group. And so they already came, very well armed into the plenary discussions.
All of you know that the censoring period 10 years ago did not budget for the 1,000 students that have come in due to that school. Was it Tomboya? Yes. So that would mean if there are more students, there's more housing, the town grows, and with the poor waste management system we have in this county, that would mean that there's improper littering, there's burning, which is impacting on us. Especially in matters of climate change. So the e-waste management mechanisms, it is an emerging issue because in a very direct way it affects us. There's environmental degradation. So the mechanisms should be put in place to curb such things. We should not prioritize on infrastructure, and we are not looking at what infrastructure can do to us. In as much as it has its good, it also affects us as a people. The two sectors, apart from funding from the budget, can have self-funding. For example, SPCR, talent. On talent, we felt that talent is self-paying, and if you get to that level where your talent goes international, you can give back to the society, and that is a source of funding. And then the other organizations, NGOs, have also invested on that sector, and other sectors within the government, like the National Government Affirmative Act Fund. So they get funding from all over, and that balances. The second reason, the other department, which is the GJLO, also has funding from AIAs, for example, in the correctional facilities. I really don't like using that word because it does not live up to its name. So the correctional facilities, these guys make antiques, they make furniture, they sell them. I believe these products from the prisons, that money should come back and help these various departments. The two sectors are interwoven, hence the success from one sector ensures the success of the other. And the third reason is that the society or taxpayers are if they are socially protected, the rule of law will be upheld, vices curbed, and the need to allocate more on GJLO will lack relevance. If a society is socially protected, we won't need policemen to run around. People will be busy. We have libraries, guys are busy taking on sports activities, guys are busy in institutions, and our culture is, we are making culture look graceful. Like we are learning from other cultures, they are learning from us, and we tap it in a way that it can generate some sort of income from amongst us. So if that is the kind of setup we have in our society, we won't need correctional facilities and law enforcers on our backs. So that is why we felt the 50-50 allocation was relevant. Most of these departments in IAA, you need education. From basic to tertiary education, for you to be employed in the Department of Energy, for you to be employed in the AII's department, you need basic education. So if we invest more on education, every other department, including the IAA,